This is the greatest blessing of their lives. And what did the three fishermen do? They walk away from it. Are you ready to go out on faith and hope? Are you willing to cast your own nets where Jesus tells you to cast? Are you willing to cast your fears aside and trust in God, who will never fail you? In 1995, I was living in San Diego. I was in the U.S. Navy for nearly 14 years and married for nearly 17 years. I had suffered an injury aboard ship 2 years previously, and in 2 months, I was out of the Navy, divorced, and having to move out of my apartment. Everything had happened so quickly. I had no idea what was to become of me. I told myself that whatever was going to happen, it would be better than where I had been. However, inside, I was praying to God that it would be okay. And God did answer those prayers, but not in the way that I expected. In today's reading, we find Jesus preaching to a crowd. This was his first outdoors sermon, and it obviously made quite an impression on the crowd because it had grown so large that Jesus had to commandeer a boat from a local fisherman so Jesus could speak to the crowd. After Jesus had finished teaching, he spoke to Simon Peter. Peter, James, and John had been fishing all night and had not caught anything. They were in the middle of cleaning their nets when Jesus asked to use one of their boats. Jesus said to Simon Peter to put the net into the deep water. Simon Peter told Jesus that they had been fishing all night and caught nothing, but then said he would do as Jesus suggested. The result was immediate. Suddenly there was so much fish in the nets that the nets were starting to break. And the men had to call out to their associate fishermen to help them get all the fish into the boats. Not only that, but according to today's reading, they nearly sank both of their boats when all the fish had been brought aboard. A true embarrassment of riches. Sometimes preachers will end the story here and talk about Jesus' blessing and how God will provide. And that is one way to view the story. But I believe there's something else at work here, something less revealed. The first part to be explored is Simon Peter's reaction to this abundance. He doesn't say thank you. He doesn't offer praise to God. No, instead he tells Jesus to go away because Peter is a sinful man. A rather odd response, I would think. However, in our discussions in the Bible Brotherhood, a men's online Bible study that we do the first and third Tuesday of every month, we talk about Peter a lot. This is because if one of the apostles in the New Testament is going to put it all out there, 9 times out of 10, it will be Peter. You will notice that there's no mention of what James and John said, right? As my father once said, Peter was a man who was intimately familiar with the taste of his own foot. Jesus, as he often did with Peter, though, looked beyond what came out of Peter's mouth and looked into Peter's heart when he said, I will make you fishers of people. In this brief exchange, Jesus had recruited his first 3 disciples. There's even more to this reading, though. I want to go back to the fishermen to make one more observation. Fishermen were hardly pillars of the community in Jesus' day. In fact, their status was only slightly higher than shepherds. And shepherds were not even allowed to enter many towns. Fishermen also worked all night because that was when the fish were active. It was hard, back-breaking work. And it was literally a feast or famine existence. You either caught enough fish to sell so you could live modestly another day, or you did not, in which case you might not eat that day. So here in this reading, the 3 fishermen have fished all night and are cleaning their nets so they can go home and rest so they can try again that night. Instead, they meet Jesus, who helps them get the volume of fish that they could only dream of. So many that they don't know what to do with it all. This is the greatest blessing of their lives. And what did the 3 fishermen do? They walk away from it. Verse 11 says, when they brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. I believe this is the real story here. God comes to us when we are desperate, like I was in 1995. But also when we're willing to walk away from everything and go into the unknown. Like what happened to me, all we have is faith and hope to lead us. Sometimes, like what happened to me, you have no choice but to go into the unknown. Other times, like these 3 fishermen in today's gospel, you have to walk away from your success and follow a new path. Either way, you must go into the unknown. So for all of you today, I offer a question. Are you ready to go out on faith and hope? Are you willing to cast your fears aside and trust in God, who will never fail you? Are you willing to cast your own nets where Jesus tells you to cast? As disciples of Christ, that is what we are called to do. We have a wonderful community here at St. Peter's. Let us all bravely go out in faith into a world that desperately needs to hear our message. Amen.